sports flowing in their veins. Mackey and Judd on Score North and ScoreNorth.com.
Yeah, I think, changing a team's mindset or general feel or energy, it's not an easy thing to do. But I do think that we just need to play baseball and not be, worrying about the stresses of the fact that we haven't been playing well. I think that, allowing our guys to go out there and play naturally and go out there and do, all the wonderful things that they can do out there, which we haven't seen for a little while, but, freeing them up, I think mentally is one of the best things that we can do for them right now.
I'm already going to blow a fuse here. This is Reckless Speculation Thursday.
Reckless Speculation.
On Mackey and Judd. To all who celebrate, we get our guy in here from the 5 Eyewitness News Sports Department, Darren Doogie Wolfson. Inside information about your favorite Minnesota sports teams. Let's table the Rocco stuff for just a moment here. Let's start with, because the week got off to a bad start when Byron Buxton was limping around at the plate again and in center field, Doogie, and Rocco had some cryptic comments after the game a few nights ago saying, hey, you guys don't even know the half of what he's been dealing with. Most of what he's dealing with, we haven't even talked about, which to me is an open invitation to people who cover the team. Whoa, there's a lot of questions to be asked here now. So please do tell. So what are you hearing about Byron Buxton's current injury status, Doogie?
Well, good morning, gentlemen. Happy Reckless Speculation Thursday. I started to think about Joe Mauer, bilateral leg weakness, right? Like, it's time for the Twins to be fully transparent. Tell us what is going on. I was unaware. I admitted to Judd on Tuesday, Phil, that I was not aware of Byron having a hip issue. Obviously, I am now aware. I knew how much the knee has been bugging him. He hasn't been anywhere near 100% all year. I'm on record. I'll continue to be on record saying I would bet a good majority of players, other players, if they were dealing with what Byron has dealt with knee-wise, would have shut things down a while ago. That is the toughest player in that clubhouse. Now, I'll take it a step further. So late Monday night, he aggravates the hip in an at-bat, then the next half inning, dives for a ball, doesn't get it, ends up coming out of the game. Jake Cave enters the game at Target Field, that loss to the Texas Rangers. So post-game, Buxton thought he was going to go to Houston, not necessarily be in the lineup on Tuesday, fully understanding, hey, I probably need a couple days here to recoup, but he thought he was going to Houston. Rocco Baldelli, the Twins trainer, told him, no, we're putting you on the injured list. My understanding is that came as a surprise to Byron Buxton, that he wasn't necessarily convinced he was going on the injured list. But again, he wasn't like thinking, yeah, I'm about to go face Justin Verlander on Tuesday. And the Twins said, hey, that MRI revealed some stuff. I was told the MRI came back, quote, clean, at least in terms of no structural damage. So the MRI didn't reveal something catastrophic. But apparently the MRI showed the Twins enough to say, okay, we need to shut him down for a minimum of 10 days with this injured list stint. But I'm just telling you, my understanding is from multiple angles that Buck thought, hey, like, I don't need to go on the injured list. Why are you putting me on the injured list? He was, full steam ahead on making it through this entire year, even if he needs a couple days here and there. He was full steam ahead on getting through this entire year without going on the injured list once. He had not gone on the injured list until Tuesday morning.
So I guess I'm intrigued here, too, though, by what Baldelli said in his comments about Buck, Dukes, is this. If he had said, hey, his hip flared up and that hadn't been a problem, I'd say, okay, that's not great, but it just is a problem now. But when Rocco made that very cryptic comment and didn't say more about you don't know how much has been bothering him, I grow more and more concerned, and I put this out on Twitter and got some pushback, not a ton. I grow more and more concerned that we're talking about chronic problems with a guy who's had a lot of problems. And I mean, the only assumption at some point is he's just breaking down. Like if he's been dealing with a hip and a knee, and it's been, I don't know, a year or months and months and months. But when you get into the word chronic, you're not talking about, well, it can be fixed. And Baldelli's made it very clear. The knee can't just be fixed. Like they can't just go in and fix it. That it's got to be more than that. So I guess from your sources, what's just the general concern to bring up Mauer again about the fact that he is breaking down here? And I mean, the one thing is what gets this guy through is his athletic ability.
Correct. Yeah, I mean, like he missed time last year with a hip issue. So I mean, I guess go back and look at his history of injuries and anything he's dealt with going back to 17, 18, 19, 20, 21. If you see the note, he missed time with this ailment, that is still in all likelihood bothering him to some extent. Now, the Twins gave him 7 years, $100 million, Judd, right? So they felt somewhat confident moving forward, right? You don't give him that sort of money, even though to me, that was a steal. Like at the time, I thought, that to me is a very team-friendly contract, maybe not quite, Acuna Jr., or something like that, but one of the more team-friendly contracts in the game that I was firmly convinced if he hit the open market, all it takes is one team. Even looking at the medical records, all it takes is one team that he would have surpassed George Springer with that $160 million deal he got in Toronto being 2 years older. But there is concern, Judd. I mean, I'm as big a Buck fan as there is. This is Buck's team. If you want to argue Correa or Sonny Gray, whatever, fine. But Byron Buxton is the leader, the true leader in that clubhouse, even though Correa has taken on very much a leadership type role this particular year. But it's Buxton's clubhouse in so many ways. But yeah, I get it. If you're concerned, if you're saying, hey, it's inevitable that in 2023 he's going to break down at some point, in 2024 he's going to break down at some point, that we need to get to the point of only expecting him to play 95 to 100 games a year, that he is going to miss 50 plus, 60 plus games. I understand where you would be coming from. I still think, though, for 7-100, Phil, you're into the analytics way more than I am, but I don't know what he's worth this year on Fangraphs. I imagine it's more than the $14-15 million he's making this year. So there still is a good amount of production there. The Twins still got value in Buxton this year. I still believe he will be back at some point this year. But if this thing starts to spiral more and more, if Cleveland's lead turns into 6-7 games in a few days, I do think they need to have that hard conversation and say, you know what, maybe let's just shut down Buck for the rest of the year.
And I believe, they're multiple games out of the wild card, right? I mean, they are not. Let me pull up the latest wild card.
Well, the White Sox are now tied with them, right? The White Sox won last night. Twins lose. So that's another team. So when thinking about, okay, what's our pathway to getting to the playoffs? We only need to jump Cleveland. Well, now really you need to jump Chicago as well. Now, you still play the White Sox 9 times this year. You still play Cleveland 8 times. So in theory, what they're hoping to accomplish is sitting there right in front of them. But Cold Takes Exposed is going to expose me badly, because on August 2nd, after the Mackey trade, after all the moves the Twins made, I said, hey, not only do I feel confident about the Twins making the playoffs, I feel confident about the Twins ending their 18-game playoff losing streak.
Doogie.
Well, at this point, they're not even going to the playoffs.
Yeah, by the way, they're 4 back of Cleveland for the division, and they're 4 back of the final wild card spot, which right now is held by the Seattle Mariners. And the Orioles are sitting between the Twins and the Mariners. The White Sox are tied with the Twins. So now they're 4 games back of both playoff spots, and they're fighting with other teams to get there. Buxton's not coming back for at least a week and a half. I saw this yesterday. It brought up great memories from a year ago when I think this is the last public Jim Pohlad sighting. It's like Sasquatch sightings where, people are driving around the Pacific Northwest or northern Minnesota and, oh my God, I saw Sasquatch. It's like anyone that sees Jim Pohlad, speaking on behalf of the team and telling people what he thinks. It's a rare sighting.
We've tried, Phil. Now, that's a good reminder. I will make another effort. It's been a while since I've made an effort. He was in Cooperstown. I know my colleague Joe Schmidt bonded with him. He wouldn't do anything on camera per se, but at that big event the night before or 2 nights before when they celebrated all the Twins legends, Jim Pohlad was there having a really good time. So I can tell you,
Such
in
a good
late
time.
July, he was spotted in the state of New York.
I wonder what a good time looks like for Jim Pohlad. Just a big glass of 2% milk and some tofu. Like, what's his idea of
tofu?
a wild Thursday night?
Could be tofu.
He was
Listen,
enjoying some wine. I don't know what
I like
particular
tofu.
wine, but he's a big wine guy.
I mean, don't rip tofu, okay?
So I like tofu, okay? I try to eat vegan once in a while. So Charlie Walters had this article October 2nd of 2021. Mind you, this is a season in which the Twins finished last place in the American League Central, 5th out of 5 teams. And Jim Pohlad said he still rates the Twins' brain trust A+, quotes an A+, not like an A-. Listen, we were a little bit disappointing this year. It was last place. Let's dock him maybe an A-. No, it's an A+ after last season. I would be curious, what does Jim Pohlad have to say about these last 2 years collectively? And I'm asking you a question that you don't know the answer to, because Jim Pohlad isn't really a public figure, even though he owns the team. But there are injuries and some bad luck that happen, but there's a lot of bad luck and injuries that happen across the entire league. It feels like more than just bad luck and injuries that are contributing to these 2 disappointing seasons, Doogie.
Well, no doubt about that, but also those quotes are a reminder that these guys are not in trouble. Like, Rocco is not getting fired after this year unless something drastically changes. Rocco Baldelli is this team's manager in 2023. Derek Falvey is this team's president of baseball operations in 2023. Thad Levine is second in command in 2023.
Real quick, I'm
changing.
not calling for heads for the sake of calling for heads. I'm not even officially calling for heads, period, here. But isn't that ridiculous? Like, with zero probing or questioning, it's just like, well, whatever. Let's just
they
kind
need to be put on notice. Like, to me, next year, like, you have to be on the hot seat. Do you not? Right? If you end up missing the playoffs this year, combined with the disaster of 2021, yeah, like, you need to be on the hot seat. I'm fine with that. Yeah, I mean, nobody's calling for any heads right now. Maybe some fans are. I'm sure some fans are saying, get Rocco the heck out of here, the way he manages his starting pitching staff and some of his lineup decisions, lineup construction. But, like, I don't think any, real logical people are saying, okay, Rocco, time to go. Because let's also not forget, it's very much a collaborative effort, right? That's our, popular buzzword with the Vikings. Trust me, this isn't just Rocco, right? I mean, there are constant pre-game discussions taking place. I was in the clubhouse the other day. What day was it? Last Friday. There's Derek Falvey, because I had an interview lined up with Derek, and I was trying to coordinate exactly what time I'd connect with Derek. He's making this, quick dash into the manager's office, right? Like, there's constant pre-game dialogue.
And it's 2:00. We got to figure out what inning the pitcher's coming out.
All these decisions, right? I mean,
Sonny Gray's done it.
Yeah,
3 innings.
Right.
Damn it.
Like, there are decisions being made at like 2:30 in the afternoon. Okay, this pitcher's only going so and so innings, that they're not necessarily managing by feel of the game once it starts at 7:10.
Here's what I don't like about how the Twins are run from the very top, and I feel like it's a reoccurring theme and problem. And I think the Wilfs had this problem the last couple years. When you put the ultimate trust in your football or baseball or hockey or basketball ops people, and you stop doing audits of what they're doing, it can turn, unless you have Jerry West in his prime, it can turn really bad. And I feel like the Twins don't have a fire inspector. What they have is a guy who shows up when the building is fully engulfed in flames and says, "Oh crap, we got to do something here." And that's, to me, Jim Pohlad, and the Pohlad's biggest problem is, and this same exact thing in a very different regime with Terry happened as well. By the time they came in and started, after saying Terry Ryan had a lifetime contract, but by the time they came in, Doogs, and said, oh my God, it was fully engulfed. And I feel like we've gone down that path again. And nobody is asking Falvey, what are you doing exactly here? Like we're seeing some cracks here. What are you doing?
One of the
I think Dave St. Peter does some of that, but should Dave, the team president, should he be the one doing the auditing? I mean, I'm with you, Judd. Like, who do they have? Jim Pohlad is not capable. He's just not of doing that. Now,
and Glenn Taylor wasn't either.
Have the right special assistant. right? But he's just not capable of doing such a thing.
See, I would think that this is going to sound crazy because I will stand by Glenn Taylor has been the worst of all of the 4 major professional sports owners in this town for multiple decades. But Glenn Taylor built his net worth. And so there is a business acumen in there somewhere going, unless I'm wrong on this, Doogs, like he built massive net worth through his own intuition. And it's like, okay, he did it, right? So there's got to be some sort of sense there. Well, Jim Pohlad inherited the net worth, and so I don't even know. Like he's never been frontal. He's never, as far as I have been told, and have covered this team, as a beat writer 10 years ago, was he was very rarely involved in the creation of the culture of the organization or. The molding of. I remember when they finally let Terry Ryan go, they were like thumbing through opposing teams' media guides to figure out what should the organizational structure look like. What should we call the head of our baseball operations? Like no originality at all whatsoever. And a guy that I think would rather just like if the Twins weren't bringing him a profit over the course of 15 years, I think he would just assume not own them. I've never seen any passion, any emotion at all whatsoever from Jim Pohlad.
Well, that's not Jim. I mean. They could be, he could be.
Does anyone know who he is?
He might crack a smile.
Hold on a second.
That's just not.
I got my media guide out here. Oh yeah.
By the way, his biggest flaw is that people spent probably 15 years criticizing him for not spending enough money on the team, and I always kind of defended that. People called me a Pohlad pocket protector because it's like no. Baseball's not a sport where in the NFL, because of the way the revenue is laid out, it's all national revenue. The Green Bay Packers have the same salary structure as the New York Giants, and that's the way the NFL works. That's not how the Major League Baseball structure works. I don't expect the Twins to outspend the top 10 big market teams in baseball, but I do expect them to be more curious than other teams and to be more innovative and creative. And it's just like for years and years they were behind the curve. The back end of the Terry Ryan, and now it's like I think at the time it was the right idea to hire a Falvey and a Levine, bring him in. They had some success early on, but like one of my biggest questions now is you've traded for damaged good pitchers 3 times in the last 3 years. Sam Dyson was damaged goods. Chris Paddock was damaged goods. I mean, you can literally Google Chris Paddock elbow. Oh, there's a bunch of articles from October of last year.
Well, the New York Mets said no to a deal that was pretty much agreed to, right?
Tyler Mahle had an inflamed shoulder a month ago.
Yeah.
So anyhow,
although it's not like Taylor Rogers would be helping the Twins a whole lot right now, but I get it. The Twins also threw in $6 million in that trade. Now I would argue on Paddock with his multiple years of team control still that there could be some value there. Okay. Right?
No, there's not. Doogie, that's absurd. That's absurd. You trade it. I know Taylor Rogers has been bad the last couple months, but Taylor Rogers was a great asset at the time. You couldn't have foreseen that he was going to be terrible for a month and a half. You traded a great asset for a damaged UCL that might help you on the 3rd year of that contract. Like it is a terrible, terrible process.
It is a minus trade. I'm just saying. That one I can justify a touch more than the Dyson trade, right? I'm just saying if we're pitting the two against each other, let's wait and see on Mahle. My understanding is he's feeling pretty well. Like he should be off the IL here September 3rd. He should be able to start some games here in September. Now, if the velo is sitting at 89 or 90 in a start or two in September, okay, we can then probably push the panic button, right? But I think Mahle is going to be okay. Just checking in with somebody close to him. My understanding is he's doing well. There's nothing structurally wrong. There's nothing seriously wrong, at least right now with Tyler Mahle.
Yeah.
I get the pushback on Paddock. I'm just saying that obtaining a starting pitcher with multiple years of team control isn't necessarily a train wreck. We've seen guys come back even from multiple Tommy John surgery. So it's not like that's a death sentence. So I'd like to think that Chris Paddock can still help this organization at some point moving forward.
I'd still be asking questions, though. See, again, this is what I want. An audit. What are you doing, Derek? What are we doing here?
But who's doing the audit? I'm just telling you, Judd, who's doing the audit? Dave St. Peter asks those questions, but
I like my job now.
Doing the audit?
I like my job now, but if we could go 400th or so, Judd Zolgad, St. Louis Park, available right now. And let me tell you, I will sit down with Derek as long as Derek needs, because I'm telling you, common sense coach. I could be a common sense executive. And I could say, what are you doing exactly here? Why have you traded? I think Paddock in a vacuum, Dukes, like I disagree with your point, but I think in a vacuum, I can get on board a little bit. But to Phil's point and to my point, it's 3 different times. And here's where I would like the questions to begin. All right, Derek, the Mets turned this trade down and you didn't. Is it because you thought we wouldn't be competitive? Is it because you thought you could outsmart the system? Like, there's a lot of questions to get at, because if nothing else, if Derek Falvey is in zero trouble, Doogie, and he might be, I think you're right. I think he's not in trouble. But I think what we need to have a discussion about is, all of us, how do we learn? Like, 3 different times you've traded for pitchers who are basically damaged goods. How do we learn that lesson? Because we're not smarter than the system. And that's what scares me a little bit about potentially Kwesi. Because he's not a longtime executive. And that's where I'm curious to see how much do you weigh in your beliefs with also what you learn? Because in these jobs, you have to learn. And I feel like Falvey is not graduating up steps. I feel like he is very much, well, no, I can do this. It's like, okay, dude, why do you think so? So this is where if the Twins don't ask questions internally from the very top, they're absolutely just screwed.
Well, I mean, remember, Derek came in as a pitching savant.
I know.
Think about all the swings and misses. We can go over the trades the last 3 years, but just how about all these relievers, all these just moves with arms that they have failed miserably on, right? We can cite many, many examples, right? Blake Parker, Alex Colomé, we go up and down the list, right? Thinking that Emilio Pagan had a pulse, moving on from Nick Anderson prematurely, right? Like we can cite all these examples, right? So like, I understand it. That's why I'm saying there has to be some sort of hot seat entering next year. Like, I never would have guessed that John Daniels in Texas would have been fired this year. Now, I get it. The Rangers haven't been a playoff team in a handful of years. But, like, if John Daniels, and I get it, different organization, different philosophies, all that. But if John Daniels can get fired, like, to me, all these guys have to be on notice starting next year. Nobody's getting fired now, and nobody's calling for heads right now, at least among this panel. But I'm just saying, like, this time next year, if we're talking about a team that's multiple games out of first place, not competing at a high level, failing, miserably, down the stretch, then, changes probably need to take place after next year.
A great, curious organization led by a competent owner who's hands-on but not meddling, right, would look at John Daniels being available and say, I get that they've been kind of bad the last 4 years in Texas, but that guy was hired at age 28 17 years ago and led the best 10-year run in Rangers franchise history. If not for a botched play in left field, they're a World Series champion. They won the pennant 2 years in a row. He's only 44 years old. Let's have a back channel conversation there. I have zero faith or confidence that Jim Pohlad even has John Daniels' contact information.
Well,
there's
John
no
Daniels
way they kick the tires on that.
Yeah, he isn't
but
landing
they
here.
should.
He'll land somewhere if he wants to. I mean, to me, the Rockies would be very shrewd, to go after John Daniels. John Daniels is not ending up with the Twins. Hey, let's not forget, Phil, the Boston Red Sox wanted Derek Falvey before they hired Chaim Bloom, right? So, there are other organizations now, maybe not so much today, but as recently as a year or two ago that had heavy interest in Falvey. Same with Thad, right? His name came up in Philadelphia. His name has come up in Colorado. So, in spite of what we're laying out, there are other organizations who look at those two guys and say, you know what? They'd really help us.
Yeah.
Quick question.
Go ahead.
Dukes, is because this has been very clear, and haven't been quite sure why this conversation, though, brings this to mind. Is Thad purposely trying to distance himself a bit from Derek? Because, it used to be Falvey, and they'd always be together at press conferences, and Thad would crack wise and be like, the guy at the comedy show. I feel like Derek's been left out far on an island by himself more often. Now, my original assumption was he wants that. But because I don't think Derek and Thad are exactly the same. And there's things about Thad that I have liked that I have not seen. Do you think that there is an attempt there a little bit by Thad himself to draw a line? Because this rightfully so, in my opinion, should fall on Falvey far more than what amounts to his assistant.
Well, sure. I mean, Falvey is the guy, right? I mean,
Right.
In spite of the collaboration that takes place and all that, I mean, Derek's the final decision maker. So sure, it stops with Derek. No, the short answer to your inquiry, Judd, is no. And they shouldn't be the same person, right? Like, I'd have fault if they were the same person. I hope that there's a good amount of differences between the two. But I'm just telling you, my sense is, having been at the ballpark Monday, Friday, talking with Derek on Friday for a while, just no. I don't sense that Thad is, trying to separate himself or anything like that. So the answer is no.
Let's empty the bag here with a couple rapid fire scoops. I'll lead you into one here. We've been saying on the Scoop Session and on Purple Daily for months that J.C. Tretter, the best available free agent center, wanted to play for the Vikings. The Vikings never even, according to him in an SI.com article, never even returned their calls, certainly didn't bring him in for a physical to check on the knee condition. J.C. Tretter, and again, we reported this on the show all summer, J.C. Tretter is saying that his status as the president of the NFLPA is ultimately what ended his career, and owners taking a stand against him than his knees being the problem. So the Vikings have said, Garrett Bradbury is our guy. J.C. Tretter, we don't need you.
Yes, I mean, that's what we've been saying. There wasn't any steam. For sure, his agents, Jared Fox, Alan Herman, reached out to the Vikings, just like a lot of agents reach out to the Vikings. Once the Vikings declined the fifth-year option on Garrett Bradbury, the signs were there. If you were an agent for any available center, you looked at the Vikings and said, okay, there's a potential opening there. There's a new regime there, a new coaching staff. Yes, I'm trying to get my client a job. Let me reach out to the Vikings. So we have said all this, that there just wasn't any steam. But yes, Phil, you suggested many times, J.C. Tretter wanted to be a Viking. But the Vikings they never reciprocated the interest. But yeah, the phone calls were there, but they were one-sided. It was the agents calling the Vikings, not Kwesi, not somebody else in the Vikings front office reaching out to one of those agents. So yeah, it never even got, to use the football analogy or the cliche, it never even got to the 1 yard line with 99 yards to go. Like it never got anywhere. So fun to talk about, but like the reality of J.C. Tretter ever becoming a Viking, it wasn't in any sort of stratosphere. It just wasn't.
Yeah. Anything else for me here, Dukes, before we peace out for the week?
Well, so Harrison Hand had the mini scoop on Twitter, D. Wolfson, KSTP, shameless plug on Wednesday. So the New York Giants claimed the former Vikings cornerback. The Vikings were hoping to re-sign him. Now, I'm not suggesting he was making the 53-man roster, but there was interest in re-signing Hand, having him for this Denver game this weekend, that last preseason game. They didn't ultimately waive another player because there would have had to be an injury settlement. I don't know what the monetary figure would have been, but the Vikings were looking to save some money there, didn't want to have to pay the injury settlement, so they were somewhat hoping that Hand would clear waivers, then they could bring him back, but he gets claimed. But the pushback, people are going to be like, well, who cares about an injury settlement? Just pay the injury settlement. Yes, the Vikings are fully aware of that. They knew once they put Hand on waivers, there was a chance. So it's not like Hand was like a lock to make the 53-man that they're shedding tears over an Egan. But I'm just saying, if he had cleared waivers, they knew the potential consequences. You put him on waivers, he might get claimed. They were well aware, but if he had cleared waivers, there was definite interest in bringing him back later this week.
Yeah, there he is. Great stuff, as always, from
Awesome,
our guy,
Doogie.
Darren Doogie Wolfson. Inside information about, and I love how you just you take our frustrations. We're not lashing out at you. We're just lashing out at Minnesota sports teams.
I mean, you can mother F me all you want. I don't care. We have that sort of relationship. So, I mean, you can get personal with me. It doesn't matter. But yes, I realize we all want to cover a winner, a big-time winner. We want to cover championship-type teams.
Yes.
I've always said, our mutual friend, my dear friend, John, who's out in Boston, who works for the Red Sox, imagine just even half of that or a quarter of that, everything he's experienced in Boston, right, with the Red Sox and the Celtics and the Bruins and the Patriots. Like, we would take one of those. We don't need 10 of those. We just need one of those, right? That's all we're yearning for. So it's fun to have, healthy dialogue about that. Let me add one more note. I'll connect with Tim Connolly, Wolves boss, at the State Fair tomorrow. Chris Finch will not be at the State Fair. He's on his way over to Egypt for a basketball without borders type gathering. I also presume, I need to check on this, but with Rudy Gobert playing for France overseas, World Cup qualifying, I would imagine with Chris Finch being in the vicinity that he may try to connect with Gobert over there.
All right. Doogie, great stuff. As always, we'll talk to you next week, man.
Okay, see you, boys. And one week from today, Gophers, New Mexico State. New Mexico State's guarantee $250,000. I would have expected more, but it's not much for Jerry Kill's return. And the Gophers expect a crowd of 42,000 1 week from today.
It'll be interesting to see, is Jerry going to be on a Zoom 10 miles away from the stadium? Because he said on our show when you joined us and brought him on a few years ago, he'll never step foot on that campus ever again.
It might be worth, for audiogram's sake or something, if we can track down that audio. I don't know if it still exists somewhere. But
I think it does. Yeah,
we need to track that down.
All right. See you, Doogie.
Bye-bye.
That scoop session, by the way, presented by our friends at Federated Mutual Insurance Company. Federated, been around for over 100 years, helping businesses maximize their level of success through risk management tools and resources. You can find a full list of industries Federated protects at federatedinsurance.com, where it's our business to protect yours. Also, a shout out to all of you trying to fend off grimy lakeside areas.
Yeah, you can't throw Aquaside pellets on the Twins front office and drain trust, but you can throw it into your lake to remove that nasty lake weed and algae. And if they want to try it, by all means, call my friends, aquaside.com. It's a safe product, too. It's registered with the EPA and DNR. You can remove that nasty lake weed and algae as you kind of wrap up the summer months of 2022 and you get that lake nice and clean and ready for fall. Go check them out in White Bear Lake if you're in the Twin Cities, or buy their product now, aquaside.com. Go to aquaside.com to learn more.
I think my favorite part about the scoop sessions is just sort of watching Declan's reaction when passion gets high and Doogie jumps in or I'm talking at the same time as Doogie, or Judd's trying to get in.
It's one last thing.
Horrified traffic cop Declan.
Declan's face with one last thing is the best.
Okay, one last thing. Oh, and the Gophers. Oh, and there's a pro-am.
And then Phil extends it. I get in trouble when I respond to one last thing. Declan's like, just shut up.
What does the guy on the left do? He's trying not to absolutely derail everything.
Blow a gasket.
I'm going to blow a gasket.
So there you go. There's your scoops here on this Reckless Speculation Thursday.